Update. My wife went out last night and didn't come home until this morning. Original post. This is horrible. I'm furious right now, but I'm also depressed as heck. I know what I have to do. It's just killing me that I have to do it. It's fresh and it hurts a lot. My wife didn't come home last night. She went out with a couple of girlfriends, which is pretty normal for her. She's normally back around 2 a.m. on these nights, so I waited up. Around 2:30, I called to check in. She answered, and I could hear people in the background. She told me they went to a party but were leaving in a couple of minutes. She wasn't home by 3, so I texted. It delivered, but no reply. Around 4 a.m., I called again. It rang a couple of times before she sent me to voicemail. My wife finally came stumbling through the door at 6:47 a.m. this morning. I know the exact time because I was worried. She was wearing a dress she didn't leave the house in, with mesh leggings I'd never seen before either. The leggings had clearly been torn, and her makeup was smudged. My heart sank when I saw her. My immediate worry was that she had been assaulted. She only shook her head no when I asked her that. I asked her what she had been doing then. She only said that I knew what she had been doing, and that kind of confirmed what the voice in the back of my head had been screaming since she walked in. My wife cheated on me last night. I asked her who it was. She shrugged almost casually and said it was somebody they met at the club. She went back to his house and hooked up with him, then Ubered home. She then said she didn't want to fight and just wanted to sleep, so that's what she did. She's still asleep now and didn't even take a shower before passing out. Suffice to say, our relationship is over. We don't have any kids, and we rent, so it shouldn't be an extremely complicated process. I keep trying to reason myself out of it, pretending there might be something to salvage here. I've always maintained that cheating would be a red line for me, though. I think I need to stick to that now. Now for the top advice before reading the updates. If cheating is your deal breaker, and it's a totally reasonable one, the deal has been broken. When she wakes up, she's going to give you the whole song and dance, that she was drunk, that she loves you, etc., etc. But the truth is, she broke your trust and your heart and your vows. Stick to your guns and leave the woman who doesn't respect you enough to stay faithful. Thank you. I don't know why it helps to hear it from another person, but it really does. I honestly don't know that I want to hear her out right now. It's not like I'm going to believe anything she tells me anyway. Also, drunk or not, it doesn't sound like by the interaction you two had, she cared one iota. She didn't even try to hide the fact she cheated. You keep trying to reason yourself out of it because this just happened and you're still in shock. The feeling of betrayal is still going to be there when the shock fades, so don't let yourself humor her now. Also, just to be 100% safe, I'd recommend an STD screening. This might not be the first time she's done something of this nature. I really don't think she's done this multiple times. If she had, she'd likely have come home and told me right away anyways. She's always been the type of person who can't keep things bottled inside. I will get tested though. It can't hurt, though I am a little scared of needles. You didn't think she'd do it the first time either. It doesn't hurt to be safe than sorry. If she's done it once, you would proceed in the assumption she's done it before, especially given her attitude. Mini update. Alright, things have happened. I am no longer at home. I left. I wasn't able to get the day off work today though, so I'm writing this on my lunch break. It's been a struggle keeping myself together today, honestly. I've had to sneak off to the bathroom twice to cry. Things rough, dude. I'll post something more detailed later on. Because holy freaking crap, there's a lot. I'm exhausted. I've only slept about 4 hours total since this all happened. Does anyone know if I should post the actual update in a new thread, or just update the one I already made? It's gonna be a lot of text, probably longer than the first one by a bit. Also, to the woman who felt compelled to send me a topless picture, thanks, but also no thanks. My heart just isn't in that sort of thing right now. Now for the first full update. Me again, folks. I'm sorry I didn't get around to this sooner. I wasn't able to get the day off work yesterday because my boss kind of sucks. I was a complete mess at work yesterday though, so I was allowed to take the rest of the week as vacation, thankfully. I think I went through all of the stages of grief while my soon-to-be ex was sleeping. I wasn't expecting my post to get any attention at all. I just figured I needed to try to talk to someone about it because I was not in a good headspace. I made the post in the morning, and by noon she was still conked out in the bedroom. I had processed things a bit more, and I had a rough plan in my head that I was starting to set in motion. I made a short list of questions I wanted answers to, gathered up all my important documents, laptop, etc. Then I went into the bedroom and started packing myself a suitcase. I know a lot of folks wanted me to kick her out. I did consider it, but honestly, I'm not overly attached to this place. We just rent, and I'm in a lucky enough situation to be able to say that paying half the rent for a few months isn't going to financially end me. It'll sting a little bit, I won't lie, but I'll make it, and I feel like being around this place is only going to remind me of her anyway. I need to be looking forward, not back. She ended up waking up about halfway through me packing my suitcase. There was momentary confusion as she looked around the room, then she just started bawling. Maybe this is awful of me, but I didn't bother comforting her. I told her I had the screenshots of her Uber and text messages from her phone, and that plus her confirmation was enough that things between us were completely done. She didn't answer me and just cried louder. I debated trying to continue the conversation, but I decided to just pack the rest of my suitcase and head back out to the living room until she came out. When she finally left the bedroom, she sat next to me on the couch and asked me if we could talk things through. I told her as calmly as possible that wasn't how things were going to work. I was going to ask questions. I wanted honest answers. She told me she'd be honest, so I proceeded. My voice was shaking the entire time. It was taking everything to hold it together, but I kept going. Was this the first time she had cheated? She started crying before she answered that, then told me no. She had cheated on me multiple times over the course of our relationship. It was, and I'm going to use her words exactly here, just sex, a way for me to let off steam. None of it ever meant anything. I wrote a comment shortly after making my post that all the love couldn't just fade away in one swoop. Well, it can. It hit me right then that I wasn't dealing with my wife. The person I was married to literally wasn't in the room. This was someone different. She refused to tell me exactly how many times she had cheated, just more than last night. Had she used protection? No hesitation from her before she nodded her head emphatically. She seemed surprised I'd even ask that. I'm still going to get tested just to be safe. I did some research into timing, and I'm going to look after it. Were her friends also cheating on their spouses? Yes and no. I tried to get her to tell me which of her friends were cheating so I could get in contact with their spouses. She probably should have, because her refusal led to me messaging pretty much every romantic partner of her girlfriends I could find on social media. There are a couple I don't know or couldn't find, but I did my part. Why did she do it? This was the answer that gutted me the most. I'm going to use her exact words again. I need to have sexual variety. I told her that it's not like our sex life is dull, and she clarified, it's not the same as something new. I didn't even have a response to that one. I had expected something about me working too much or not supporting her emotionally. Nope, she just hooked up with other guys because she felt like it and wanted to have some fun. When I didn't respond, she started asking me about counseling and therapy. I reiterated that our relationship was over. I'd be leaving. What she did next disgusted me. My ex actually tried to have sex with me. She put her hands on me and started trying to take off my clothes. I felt like I wanted to vomit and pushed her away after a couple of seconds. She just kept telling me that she would figure out a way to fix it, that we would work through it together. I told her there was no way, and she started bawling again. She went to the bathroom and locked herself inside. I was just sick of everything at that point. I called her mother and told her what was going on. The full story too, the cheating, the questions I had asked, and the fact I was leaving. I've always had a good relationship with my ex's parents. They both decided to drive to town, which is about an hour for them. Once I knew someone was on the way, I just grabbed my things and left. Her waterworks in the bathroom were just annoying me because it felt hollow to me, especially given the answers to my questions. I ended up packing another bag before I left and took all the things I could think of that I felt sentimental attachment to with me. I found a parking lot and sat in my car until I was able to get in contact with a buddy for a place to crash. I tried to take a nap, but I was running on way too much adrenaline. I knew when her parents had made it to the apartment because she started calling me. When I didn't answer those, she started texting me. She had gone from sad and crying to furious. Apparently, I'm a freaking piece of crap for telling her mom everything. Whoops, I'm not sorry. I've received roughly 100 texts from her since leaving. They range from name-calling all the way to begging me to come back, to sending me pictures of the food she ate for some reason. I haven't responded to any of them. I feel like I said my piece before leaving. So that's where I'm at now. We didn't have joint finances, so that part was easy. I canceled all the subscriptions that go to my credit card just to be sure and changed all my important passwords. I'm crashing on a friend's couch for the next bit, but I've got some feelers out to some short-term rental places until I can find something more permanent. I've got feelers out for a divorce attorney too. A coworker of mine had a recommendation, so barring something better, I'll probably go with them. I also wanted to say that I was shocked by how supportive everyone was, and thank you for that. Truly, from the bottom of my heart. It isn't easy for me to talk about emotional things with people close to me. This was an invaluable venting place for me. Thank you all so much. Glad you had the strength to get out of there and not put yourself through more of your ex's BS. I find it funny that she started crying now. Seems like a complete flip from how heartless and cold she was to you when she first came home. Good riddance, and good luck to your future OP. I honestly don't know if she was crying because I was leaving, or just because she was caught and the little universe she had built for herself was crumbling. I'd like to think she cared I was leaving on some level, but her response to the whole thing does make me question. I'm looking into therapy, but as weird as it sounds, I want the anger to fuel me a little longer. The crying was the same reason a child cries when it gets caught with its hand in the cookie jar. The way she responded and acted, and her reasoning behind all of it, tells me she didn't care. She just cared about getting caught, and that this will change her way of living. None of it ever meant anything. That line that so many cheaters use perfectly illustrates how selfish these people are. I read several cheaters posting online using that same excuse. I don't know, maybe there is some truth to it. Maybe in the moment, they aren't thinking about their spouse. It still doesn't change the decisions they make to continually mislead, but maybe it's not an outright lie. To them, it didn't mean anything. And the bit they say not with words but actions is that, neither do you. Final update 4 months later. Hey folks, I'm happy, I guess, to say that this will be the final update to what has been probably the most difficult chapter of my life. I've felt an immense amount of support from the community here from my initial 2 posts, so I wanted to give a short update. Bottom line, my ex and I both signed the final papers for our divorce this week. It feels kind of surreal to think about that still. About 2 weeks into everything, she got resistant. I cut her off entirely, and she refused to return my attorney's calls for a little while. Eventually, things got back on track. As for the infidelity itself, I don't have a ton more details to share with you. We did a short mediation, and by that time, I didn't feel there was any remorse on her end. I've talked about that a lot with my therapist. I'm in therapy, by the way. It still hurts that someone who I thought loved me could have apparently cared about me so little, but I'm working through it. That's really all I've got to share. Thanks again, everybody, for your advice and support. Good for you. I know it's hard, but now you can move on to the next chapter of your life. It feels like a massive weight off my chest, at the same time as I'm absolutely terrified for what comes next. I'm excited, though. Congrats to you. Did you have any communication from her parents at all after the initial call? Also, well done for letting the other partners know. I did talk with her parents a few more times. Nothing too long or in-depth. It seemed they were as surprised as I was, and didn't really know how to handle their relationship with me given what was going on. Did any of the other cheaters your wife was with face any consequences? 2 other relationships ended because of all of this. I spoke briefly with both the other guys, and they had both found out what I had in different ways after I tipped them off to it. Awful situation, but better for all of us in the end, I'm sure. Last story. My soon-to-be ex-wife came out as a lesbian, and I'm not allowed to be angry. I, 31 male, was with my soon-to-be ex-wife, 30 female, for 10 years, married for 6. We met in university, and I moved with her back to her home city after graduation. Just 3 weeks ago, I came home from the gym to find her sitting at the table with a packed suitcase. She tearfully confessed to me that she had been seeing someone for a couple of months, and in doing that, she had realized she was, in fact, a lesbian. She said she was leaving me because she no longer wanted to live a lie. I stood there in complete shock, not even knowing how to react, as she said farewell and walked out the door. It took me a few minutes to process what had just happened, as my life crumbled right before my eyes, and she was gone by the time I was able to try and follow her out the door. I blew up her phone with calls and text messages, just because I felt like the least she could do was talk. Eventually, one of her friends picked up and told me, "She can't talk right now." I'll admit in hindsight that there were signs. We'd always had some issues with our sex life, and it was getting worse toward the end. There was emotional distance between us, and we had quite a few rough patches. I'll also admit that I wasn't the perfect husband, but I was never abusive or mean toward her. I did my fair share of the housework, was romantic, and put emotional effort into the relationship. This woman was the love of my life, and I'd be damned if I wouldn't have fought to the bitter end to make our marriage happy. But sadly, none of it mattered in the end. I failed at a marriage that was doomed from the beginning, and it cost me 10 years of my life and most of my 20s. What baffles me the most about this whole situation is, how could she not have known this whole time? I was aware that she was into women. She had dated women before meeting me, and her friends and family are very open-minded. She has a queer cousin. I can't honestly think of any reasonable explanation. I feel like I've been deceived. The worst part is how this is playing out with all our mutual friends, pretty much all of whom were her friends first. The very next day, she made a long-winded post on Instagram describing her coming out story, for which she received an endless stream of likes and comments telling her how she's so brave for living her truth. Most of her friends have outright stopped talking to me and removed me from social media, except a few who have called and stopped by to check in on me. Even then, though, every time I try to vent to them, I'm met with some variation of, "You didn't see how much of a wreck she was," or now, think about how difficult this is for her." Like, what the hell? I'm the injured party here. It wasn't my choice to knowingly enter a marriage with someone I'm incompatible with. I'm a human being with emotions too. Anyway, thanks for listening to my little rant. Now that the initial shock of all this is over, I guess all I can really do is pick up the pieces and figure out my next moves. You are allowed to be angry, regardless if she was figuring out if she was bi or lesbian. She had an affair. She lied. She betrayed you. She could have figured it out without having you on the back burner. She was selfish. Literally this. I'd also like to add, because he asked, that I have outed 2 of my friends to themselves. One is now a bit more gender fluid, and the other spent her college years proving me right. I say all that to say when I told them, they both had the same reaction. "What do you mean I'm gay?" And then I explained, and they sat in silence for a bit, and that's life. But important info, I'd known each of them for nearly half a decade at that point, and that whole time, they were oblivious to where their own heart, eyes, and sometimes hands lingered. Haha. Also, you're allowed to be angry. Anyone who says you can't be has either A, never been cheated on, and or B, never watched the love of their life discover they are not their partner anymore, or had the life they built implode with no hope of piecing it back together. Good for her that she gets to be open, but if it comes at the expense of your joy and relationship, that's a detriment. So you're allowed to mourn that, and scream, and feel the pain. Just promise yourself you'll get up after this chapter closes, time passes, and the absence becomes a little less lonely, a little more welcoming. Taking the discovery of her sexuality completely out of the equation here, she's been cheating on you. That's flat out unacceptable, regardless of if someone is just trying to find themselves. You have every right to be upset by the dissolution of this relationship because you were cheated on. I wouldn't say she led you on in regardless to her sexuality. I didn't fully come into my own sexuality until after my marriage, and so for many, it takes time to figure it out. But you don't figure it out by cheating. That's the biggest issue here, and I'm sorry you're going through this.